Well, hello to all of you out in the internet land. This is the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Church's post-service discussion for August 22nd. We just got done listening to our talk by our guest speaker, Jake Tranter, who is with us today. So thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you.
And so let's waste no time. We'll dive right in. Literally wanted to go first.
Well, first of all, Jake, I appreciated your talk. It was actually quite inspiring to me for several reasons. I'm a relatively new member of the Unitarian Church, and for 1,000 years I was Presbyterian, and I was director of Sunday school superintendent for the church, Tustin, Arizona, Tustin, California. And matter of fact, well, I digress. But anyway, when I was in charge, I would make sure that the children understood different facets of different religions, and even had a Passover supper that we served for the kids for Passover. And after your talk, like I say, I was inspired. I would really like to see our little church reach out to children and try to emphasize that our principles, and one is accepting other religions, and could even have, I don't know, a missionary from the Mormon Church come in and explain their faith, maybe a priest from the Catholic Church, or a rabbi from the Jewish Church. I don't know. You know, it just was inspiring to me. So I appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad that it could be inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have, periodically throughout the calendar, it's been a little tough since, since we've been in lockdown, but, we would have, for instance, Lauren Schroeder come in and do the talk for Yom Kippur. I did talks on Zoroastrianism and Sikhism, and so we've tried to incorporate world faiths as much as possible. But as far as implementing that into like some of the children's curriculum, or like an OWL Our Whole Lives curriculum, that could be something that the board or the RE would want to look at. We've been joined by Laleen and JC, and so hello, ladies. Connie wanted to go next.
Well, I just wanted to point out that in the past, this is several years back, we, for several years, it was world religions was part of the curriculum, but primarily for younger kids. We didn't have upper grade school or that age at that time. It was younger kids. But I wanted to specifically say something to Jake about his idea of tuning in on what's happening in the world. I think sometimes we have never had a youth program. We've had, our programs have been geared to younger kids. And I think the idea of using current events, like having the adult who he was talking about, a person that was just solid in their beliefs, and that could talk to kids about current events, like instead of some incredible program, somebody that instead would have good skills with young people to get them to talk about something. I thought that was really a good idea. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit, Jake. Like what led you to think of that? And then JC wanted to talk.
Well, we all know that a lot happens in this current day. I mean, a lot happens in general, just in the world. And so using it as a way to structure your life can really help, especially if you feel anguish or you feel anxious about the current events that are happening in, like for example, things that are happening in Afghanistan right now. That can teach us to be more thankful for what we have here and the freedoms that we have, and put in a little perspective. And so there's teachings for really any world event, and I wanted to include that because it can be important to show the good and bad side, and show a balance of those kind of things that happen in the world. It's not all negative, it's not all good, but everything can be taught, into a certain line of meaning.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, JC.
Well, I'm speaking from the beginning days when I was a young parent. My children were 2 and 5 when this fellowship began. In fact, the whole fellowship began in a very usual way for spiritual groups. We all had kids and we said, wow, it's time for them to start getting a spiritual life. And I don't see a one around here that I want them to be in. So we made our own. And we had teenagers, we had babies. It was the whole thing. So yes, we had the whole sexuality program. We had teenage boys with long hair. We had all kinds of challenging aspects in the community at that time because this was the 60s. And so, yes. And then because we were totally a fellowship, I remember everybody taught some aspect of the kids. Lori August and I did the worship services, which the adults would not let us do with them. I remember the men were sometimes teaching the teenagers. I mean, all the people in the fellowship were involved in teaching the children something. And yes, the what's going on in the world, because especially for the kids that were 10 and older, you have to live in this world. What you believe and what you value is critical for you to understand. And how does it fit into what's happening over there or what's happening right here? Yes, our long-haired teenage boys knew that we backed them all the way. And if they were challenged, which they were, walking across the bridge, that we were right behind them, and we would tell the policemen that we find their hair just perfectly fine and they're to leave them alone. I mean, that's a tiny little issue relative to things, but in Roseburg, Oregon, it was a big issue. And our kids needed to feel they could walk safely with their long curls. So anyway, those are the kind of things that I remember. And I also remember the summer camps that we had every year, so that we had extended time for a week with the young. So yeah. And as Connie is saying, we've always mostly had little kids lately, but that's really important too. And I've been aware of the program. And in fact, we use their version of the principles on this thing. And I was interested to see how it's stated, like, everyone needs a voice. We're teaching our kids that everyone needs a voice. That's critical right now. That's in the midst of everything. So you could have a very active current events program in a Unitarian church.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jake, sorry, you haven't been the focus of these discussions before, so you can respond to anything you like, or you can pass, you know.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. A big, I mean, I know that I'm not a super prominent member of your church or anything. I plan on getting more involved now that I'm going to be moving back by September to Roseburg. But having different events that can really bring in the youth, that's I think it's a really good idea. And just having them in mind as people who also have a voice is really important. Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I think one thing that I found super valuable growing up, you know, was we were kids with long hair, my brothers and I, and my father was a fairly high-ranking military officer, and I didn't know until later, but he actually took a lot of grief for letting us have earrings and dress the way we wanted to dress, and you know, and like having an older figure in your life who stands up for your youthful expression, you know, is something that actually it goes a long way, I think, you know. So JC, I think your point is well taken. I also think that I'm reminded every single time one of the founders of this congregation talks about the early days, is the immense debt that we owe you for, you know, for taking up that mantle of actually getting this thing started. So I don't want to let another opportunity go by to say thank you for that. Okay, so it'd be nice to hear from somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Look, oh, yep, go for it, Glennis.
I grew up in the Methodist church here in town. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about the church at that time was that we had a really, really strong youth group. And we did things together. We loved each other. We had all kinds of fun. And that is one of the strongest memories that I've taken from that church. And the other one, of course, was singing in the choir, but different story. Anyway, it was strong. It had probably 20 of us kids all in high school at the time that were involved in this. Even one of the members of the church gave their ranch to our group so that we could have campouts there and stayovers, and it was just a lot of fun. And so my question to you, and actually Jake, it's very, very good news to hear that you're thinking of coming up this way a little bit more. And so that my question would be, if it really is a question, is how can we facilitate something like that? I mean, there are younger kids in our congregation, but how can we build more of a youth group to draw more youth like maybe you in?
Well, there are a couple different ways that you could. You could do it on a more consistent basis, or maybe on a less consistent basis, but make it more of a bigger scale, whichever works best for the congregation. But one of the things I mentioned is not making it exclusive to people who have particular spiritual beliefs, and maybe making it open to youth or just people in general who are maybe lost in their beliefs or seeking kind of spiritual help. So maybe having a consistent thing on a certain day of the week to where it's almost like an open house where there's events and games and things like that. or a bigger event like that summer camp that was mentioned earlier, where it's like, hey, let's just get some people in the community and go out and go somewhere fun and just get the community together.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can even think about doing as we're closed? So that, it's not in the building or whatever? I mean, right now we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
Oh dear, did we lose you, Jake?
No, he's thinking.
No,
sorry.
I'm doing the thinking pose.
Okay,
Sorry.
there you go.
There could be a lot of different remote things that you could try doing. Like, my mind immediately goes to a video that I did when quarantine first started, and that was getting all my friends together for this video where we kind of made a reaction to the previous video and carried on with it to make like kind of a linear story, but through cut up videos.
Right.
And
so much fun with that.
so yeah, Kim was in it. It was actually a lot of fun, and so maybe doing some stuff like that, having open Zoom calls where people can come in and just have a discussion kind of like this, just talking about their faith and asking questions. I know that that's a really good idea that you could incorporate. But maybe I could do some more research and bring some more to the table if I've thought about it more. But that's what comes to the top of my head.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Jake, one thing that you mentioned was, being inviting to people who may not necessarily hold religious views or who are searching. And I just want to, just for our own edification, the Unitarian Universalist Church is really guided. The only thing that is really compulsory to believe are the 7 principles that we talk about from time to time. And number 4 in those 7 principles is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, right? Now, of course, that truth and meaning can take on many different shapes and, as far as like religious or spiritual beliefs go. And it's, but as long as it's genuine, I think most people would agree with that interpretation, I hope. And so for that reason, our church is kind of uniquely positioned, being without a strict dogma, to really be a home for people who are questioning. I hope anyway, and maybe the biggest hurdle is getting that philosophy out into the community or into the world, right? So that people know when they come in, they can be a questioning person, they can have doubts, they can be on a journey for religious discovery. Yeah, okay, so yeah. Okay, Connie, did you, and then Connie, then Laleen, and then JC, if she still wants to. Go ahead,
Well,
Connie.
in response to whoever asked the question, Glennis, about what we could do at this time. What I thought while I was listening to Jake and what I'm thinking as I'm listening to everyone here, this is actually the perfect time for us to do planning, creative planning about these ideas. And we can do that. We can do that by Zoom. We can spend some time. Normally, we're so busy with other responsibilities or activities in the church, but I think this is just a wonderful opportunity for people who might be interested to really do some good brainstorming about what kinds of activities we could do. And Jake made me think of all the videos that I've seen on PBS and other programs where they go around and kids are in a Zoom meeting, but they're talking about what it's like to go to school online, for example. And they were real creative And some wrote a poem, some sang a song, but you know, of how that felt emotionally to them. So there's things like that that we could facilitate. And it's real exciting. The whole idea to me, I don't feel shut down because we can't meet in person right now on that one item.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead, Laleen.
Hi, Jake. I really enjoyed you today. I just wanted to interject at this point that there is some planning starting, and I hope that you will join us. I'm presenting today to the board a project for the coming, could be a couple of years. We're not sure how long it'll last. Has to do with some monies that we've been given and how they will be used, given that the intention for part of that money was that we would be open. So there'll be more about that, in other words, in terms of what we could do. But to me, the important thing is that the board appoints a committee. And so I'm extending that to you. If you have some interest, let me know, and I can tell you more about what the board decides, today in terms of that committee. The idea behind the plan at this point for shutdown, and this is initial preliminary, unsculpted, uncast in concrete plan, is that we will gather together a group of people and we'll do brainstorming of all different kinds of ideas. A few that have been suggested are like doing a community series where we're reaching out to people in the community, some known, many from other organizations, and the idea is to help our congregation or church community be known to the much larger community. And by bringing in, say, someone like Bob Heilman, who for years has done Saturday readings to children at the library, or someone who's head of Umpqua Watersheds. But anyway, doing a whole series like that, and then included in that series is a consistent series, I hope, of the Voice of Youth. And the idea there is to get kids talking, as we've been saying, freely about whatever interests them. In other words, not given a topic for discussion. Sort of a, let us hear what you think about, gender roles and identity, and do you think about spirituality? What do you think? And how do you feel about religions, but just a whole gamut, but, totally kind of free flowing. And the hope is that will open up into, when we open up as a congregation, into special time that's just considered young person's time. And when I say youth, I'm really looking at starting at, say, 15 and older in a totally non-drug, non-alcohol environment, open mic kind of thing, open discussion groups, but in the kind of environments that parents are going to feel fine about their kids being in, and then also trying to draw in the parents with being able to hear bits and pieces, maybe even having dialogues between adults and parents and young people. And then cutting it off, say about age 25. Thrown out in the air, initial kind of very broad plans. What the committee ends up pulling together will be, I'm sure, exciting and invigorating, but the time to join as soon as the board says go. So let me know, whoever's interested in that. The only other person on the committee at this point will be one board member, because each of our committees has a board member who participates in that.
Yeah. Jake, did you want to respond to any of that? From anything?
Not too much off the top of my head. I think it's all great. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Are you interested?
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah.
Well, since we're here, something that I mentioned in my intro for Jake, he is a filmmaker, and this is the webpage for Spider King Studios. And they have done a lot of work with the community, a lot of really good work with the community, both with local businesses and keeping people engaged in what I consider to be very productive and very quality work. So you have a lot to give, I think, Jake. JC had something.
Well, one of the things that you said, Jake, that I glommed onto was that the young people should know that doubts are all right. And in my book, doubt is the first step on the search for a truth. And I would offer that as the overall focus of a young people's group is bring your doubts here. Let's look at them, because that's the main appeal. And before, when we had a liberal religious youth group, you're right. They were very clear about what they doubted, and different adults gave them different answers, and that was cool. So you have to make up your own mind, because even the people who come to this church have different answers to that doubt. And that's to me, that's a big place to start with the young, is what is it you don't believe? What is it you are worried about?
Lurley?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
Something I always like to say is if you aren't questioning the belief, then you probably don't have a lot of mental fortitude with having your own thoughts. And
you're not paying attention.
Go ahead, Lurley.
I just all these ideas that are being thrown out are absolutely awesome. But I think I go back to Connie's comments about, we can brainstorm through discussions like this, but we really need a planning committee that can get these ideas and put together. So I concur with Connie on that.
Yeah, I think that's what Laleen is working on, really.
Oh.
Right, Laleen?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to carry that a step farther, since, Jake is on here.
Mhm.
Jake, one of the things that I really would like to envision, and maybe this is, something that can grab your brain while you're not here, but could be thinking about, is I'd love to see some kind of a collaboration among us of how we can present the freedom available within the Unitarian Universalist system that makes it attractive, to youth. And if you notice some of the graphics that Michael has incorporated into the service, doing a short video, which, just things like that interspersed with comments that would really be attractive and would really draw a young person that we can use to highlight to different audiences and make what we're planning to do attractive in a very short visual way. I'm also thinking about, the idea of using our cell phones. I've talked with the congregation about this before, but being able to do really short 20-second ads where we just flip up a few videos, on an ad, and we could do the same thing on Twitter and several other social media things that really are just like teasers of what we're about, to start to generate some interest in what's going on in this place. So if you want to put your mind to that too, that would be great. And Michael can turn you on, or I can turn you on to some sites, where we can look at graphics and look at things that might be colorful and of interest and challenging to that particular age group. That's all.
You can consult. You can add consulting to your resume. It'd be good. Well, if it's okay with you, I would like to direct the conversation back to the broader subject of youth issues. And Kim, hang on. One thing that I would like to discuss, and Jake, maybe you can take a bite at this first, and then Kim can come in, is, in your opinion, or in anybody's opinion, what do you see as a youth issue, or that young people are dealing with now, that maybe previous generations have not had to deal with? I'll give you an example, right? One of them would be having a permanent reputation online, right? I thank God that there were no cell phones and no cell phone cameras around when I was 15 through 25, So maybe, Jake, if you don't mind, you can take a crack at that, and then we'll hop over to Kim.
Yeah, I think you kind of took some of the words out of my mouth. First thing that my mind went to is technology. A lot of people in my generation, and even younger, especially younger, they don't know anything other than their cell phone or social media. And so you'll often see them just glued to it. And the thing is their attention span is suffering because of it. And even with me working in the film industry, I have to keep those things in mind, where someone's attention span can be as long as, the average is 6 seconds nowadays. And so, it's crazy short how short the attention span is of people nowadays. And so that's definitely an issue that I think a lot of people who are younger face. And so maybe giving more opportunities of using those motor skills and engaging the brains, where it's not someone's face to a phone or a screen. Like my mind goes to me being in the Boy Scouts. I learned knot tying, survival skills, different things of those natures, and it helped me a lot. So maybe having some sort of opportunity like that.
Okay. All right. Good thoughts. Go ahead, Kim, and then Larry.
Well, I just remember in my church that we had Sabbath school and Pathfinders. Sabbath school is what we do either before church or after church. And our church believes that when you get together in smaller groups and talk about stuff, you learn more that way. And so we have Sabbath school where we gather in small groups with all the different age groups. Even in adults, we have several of them. We have a young adult, and we have a youth, and we have younger kids. And so I remember that as a kid, my aunt would teach it, and we would talk about a lot of stuff, and I remember having a lot of fun. Pathfinders is like Cub Scouts. And but we had both girl and boy going together because we didn't have very many kids probably. But I remember going on camping trips and planned camping trips and various things we would do as part of Pathfinders, getting our patches. And, of course, we always had talked about God and praying along the way. But I just remember doing a lot of that stuff. Currently at our church, we are doing every Friday evening where a family hosts a get together where we might play games, we might sing songs, various things. Some of the people are doing it at their house, some do it at church. And so it's a family thing. So anybody can come, and it's just fun. At our church and where we do our potlucks and stuff, we have a pool table and a ping pong table, and so we can play various games. And we got TV. We can watch a movie together. Of course, we got to have snacks along the way too. So we always have lots and lots of food to eat too. But yeah, that's kind of a fun thing to do. We try to do various things as a church group, and everybody comes. So the youth can come, the families can come with their little kids, and we got everybody running around crazy. Sometimes it's really loud, but so that's what we try to do. And I'm sure there's a lot of different things churches do if they're bigger. My church is really tiny, so we don't have a lot of people to work with, but
Okay. Yeah, good thoughts. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I wasn't at all sure how it was supposed to cut in. I figured if I raised my hand, it's kind of like being at an auction. Is that how it goes?
Yeah.
I've
34,
just
5,
bought something.
800. Go for it, Larry.
Well, so me and my wife teach at the art center, and yeah, this is a short comment, but I got so caught up in what was just said that I almost forgot what I was going to say. But anyways, we were teaching basket weaving, and so I had them raise their hands. How many of you can tie a knot? Only half of them raised their hands. You know, like, so they're not getting, this is why we have outside programs. The kids aren't getting motor skills, and that's part of the brain. It's not really muscle memory, they say. It's brain memory that they're missing because they're getting more computer time and less using their hands, doing stuff. So anyways, the idea just came to me is that to offer community service or community programs for people that you're targeting that are non-religious,
Right.
such as art classes or singing or, you know, things, whatever the community is in need of, or
Yeah.
service projects that the youth can, that's, I guess, not that Boy Scouts is very popular anymore, but when I was young, it was very popular. And that's what we did. It was a community, non-religious group that went out and did fun stuff together. But I don't know, is that at all helpful? I'm not sure it is. But I'll just throw something else out. I'm looking at the congregation. There are some younger people there. I like to see them get more more involved in the leadership of the church.
Sure.
We would too.
That's one way
Absolutely.
Yeah.
to get their ideas if they start having to be there and having to implement their suggestions.
Yeah.
But well, I became a Mason years ago. When I was younger, I was in my 50s, and I was clearly a youth in that group. The average age was way above the life expectancy rate at the time. So they live a long time. But that's the reason that happened is they never left an open door for the youth to have a say.
Mhm.
And so the Masons just got older and older, and we had way more funerals than weddings, you know, and they started dying off, and they're selling their buildings, and they're still not getting it. They need to let go and let the youth take over, because they're the next generation. They're going to actually run this thing when we're all gone.
There's no problem with that. We are looking hard for leadership that is under 80 years old. Thank you.
So, I have no idea how this, I'm just looking at my own experiences
Right.
which I do with this group. But if that could be encouraged, I would gladly, they have this thing in Masons too called the past masters. Supposedly, once you became the master, then you step down and you become a past master, and you never do that again. So in other words, the young generation is always coming through, and then they become past masters, and then they just are a support group, and that's how they are supposed to run their group, which doesn't quite work that way. Anyway, I'm done.
Interesting. Jake, did you want to respond to any of that? And then Connie.
No, I totally agree. Having those kind of events would really help. And something that I even thought of along that kind of discussion was maybe also getting in tune with what the kids are interested in, as far as, like I mentioned earlier, with them being just attached to their phone. Maybe give some opportunities of themselves to offer some like technology lessons, or like, how does social media work in their eyes, see how the world works through their eyes, and give them opportunities to kind of be more engaging to the rest of everyone with what they are knowledgeable about. I think it could be interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point, is, offering leadership or teaching roles, I think is really a good idea. One of the things that before the shutdown happened that I was trying to do between, like the group singing lessons or the group music lessons and the support groups and things like that. It's really too bad that we're as isolated as we are now, because who knows what effect, those kinds of meetings could have had. Connie, and then Kim after Connie.
Well, I have two things to say. One is about our trying to get young adults, young families in our church. But my experience is that young families want to go to a church that has more community feeling to the family. We have a lot of community, but it's to a certain age group. And I've invited two different people, and I can remember that they came, they had, one just had a little kid, and the little kid can go downstairs, but then if they have a baby. But anyhow, if you remember, even with Megan, when her kids were little, those people are so overwhelmed with child rearing and having a job. And if they don't have a community that's helping them out with those things, they don't have the time and energy to put into like the UU church. And both of those situations I can think of, the young person, the young adult was interested, but they were just overwhelmed by the fact that they had little kids. So I think that's something we're going to have to take a look at. And I wanted to say something about the youth, what you brought up, Michael, about what do we see as youth issues. And I think in a way, during this brainstorming or whatever, what we think and what they tell us, we need to not think, what do we think the issues are, but we need to talk to people like Jake.
Fair enough.
And say, you tell us what the issues are, because we have our own mindset of what they think they are. So that's my 2 bits.
One thing that I was, because I was brainstorming, of like how this conversation was going to go. And Jake, maybe you can keep this in mind, and maybe we'll get to it before we adjourn, is, all right, I'm making King Jake, right? And now you have your king scepter that you can make decrees. And if you could institute one change in the world that would solve the problem, solve one major youth problem, what would it be, right? So you think of that, and Kim will talk.
Yeah, I was just remembering, there's a church family who they have a business for the little kids business. They call it the Littles business. And these kids, they go off and they pick, they've been picking peaches lately, and they pick a whole bunch of peaches, and people make orders to get peaches so they don't have to go off and get peaches. And they make money that way. The kids are trying to get a go-kart right now. But I was thinking maybe that's something youth might want to do, especially if there's several of them doing it at one time, going picking fruit. together because you're together and you're doing something healthy and getting out in nature and
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Maybe make a little money. I don't know.
Yeah. Cheryl's joined us. So hello, Cheryl. Yeah, looks like you're still connecting to audio. Yeah, good thoughts all the way around. Okay, Jake, what do you think? King Jake, your majesty.
That's definitely something to think about. But I'd say something my mind goes to is empathy.
Oh.
Just in having more empathy for everyone can go a long way. And that's not only just for youth, but for everyone in the world. I think a lot of problems in the world, big or small, can be solved with just a little bit of empathy. And so, you know, finding ways to instill more mindfulness in just people, showing that we aren't all that different. Everyone goes through their own things and ways of handling things. A lot of people forget that they were at one time a youth themselves, and so times change, but ultimately I believe that things kind of stay relatively the same as far as how we act and how we are. Things just present themselves differently, in my opinion. So just understanding, okay, I was there once, maybe I can find ways to relate or help.
Yeah, there are definitely issues that are timeless, you know, that every generation has to deal with. And, you know, I think I can speak for everybody in here, that those issues, those timeless issues, are not forgotten, you know. So, JC wanted to go next.
I think that another thing that my experience told me worked well with the teenagers was the adults, the elders in the church situation make themselves available in some sort of a committed way so that the kids have some other adult besides their parents that they can talk to. And I know that Martha, who isn't here today, was involved in that sort of thing in that church in California that she went to. And they made some really important, lasting relationships with people younger than even their own children. Just by being willing to be open to what their issues were, what the elders' experience was, and how things are different and or the same. So that's another thing we have to offer as part of the brainstorming thing, is adults who are willing to really commit individually to a young person for a year or two as the aunt or the other adult.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lily.
I would take that a step further and share something that JC and I wanted to do, and I would love to see us do through UU. And that's like a grandparenting option. I live on a street that when I bought the house here, everybody was old. And since that time, 4 of the houses have changed over, and the families or the people who have bought them have now children. So it's delightful. It's a dead end street to actually see all the kids out in the street, and they're all within, similar age group. And so JC and I, with one family in particular, wanted to be like the grandparents. They don't have grandparents here in town. And the idea was to provide relief for the parents to be able to do things, or a place for the kids to come, and they were little. And then, of course, COVID hit, and boom, kids were like the worst thing on earth for old ones to be around. But I still love the idea, and I really believe that within our congregation, there are a number of people who would be willing to serve in that kind of a role, so that those aged parents who have kids that still need a babysitter would be able to come, to events at the church and not have to be concerned about their kids. And that hopefully we could link that up so that the kids would get to know the adults, the grandparent age adults that we're going to be interacting with them. So just another idea to throw out about how we can make the entire congregation more accessible and freer to participate.
Okay. Did you want to respond to any of that, Jake?
No, I say that I agree. I don't think there's much that I could add. I agree with everything.
Cool. Thank you. Larry.
My kids are letting me down on their responsibility to give me grandkids. And so,
Put you on the committee.
or they move away. I mean, what would they do that for? Go and travel for, anyway. So there was another topic. Maybe this is a little different than what we've been talking about at the beginning of this meeting. And it is sharing a variety of different religious beliefs with group, that youth group possibly, or whatever. And the thought came to me, and I scribbled it down on this paper here, but I'm the only one that can read it, evidently. But quite often when I see that, you see the cultural aspects of these different religions, which are vastly different. What if we focus not on their cultural blueprint, but on their method of reaching out to the spiritual, which is nothing to do with their culture usually. And we might find that the various religions actually have a lot of common ground on this particular. Anyways, that was an idea.
That's always the last lesson.
Right. That at the core, I think it goes beyond religion too, that at the core, most people desire the same things. It's just the path that we choose to get there.
The names we give things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're kind of winding down. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but are there any final thoughts or final questions for Jake? Yeah, go for it, Kim.
I just think that us older adults need to appreciate what a youth does, because I've had experience when I was younger, adults going, "Why are you laughing on the Sabbath?" And I'm like, I thought God wanted us to laugh, and things like that. Just be aware of what you're saying, and maybe you might be in a grumbly mood, but sometimes we youth take it the wrong way, and we're like, yeah, I just remember that so clearly, that we were just like taken aback by this person just telling us, "No, you're not supposed to laugh on the Sabbath." I'm like, okay, I thought God wanted us to laugh, So, because when a youth is looking at an older person, they're thinking, I don't know what about this person, so you have to come out and maybe giggle, maybe do funky things so that they take you as, oh, you're a nice person, This is just what I was remembering as a kid.
That's a good point, Kim. And we need to be always aware of that.
Yeah. Well, I feel good about this discussion. I think I'm satisfied that we put Jake through the ringer enough, I think. Jake,
He'll be part of us.
yeah. If it's okay with you, Jake, maybe you can send us off with a parting thought.
I guess I would say that there isn't much of a gap between the community and the church. I don't think there's just a lot of mental barriers there, I think, and I think that's a lot of it is created through stereotypes and the media shoving their agenda in your face. And so, just something to keep in mind is that there's a lot more relatable things that you can go by, and a lot of it is just simply reaching out and offering, So, and piggybacking off of what Michael said earlier, me personally, I have a lot to offer when it comes to at least spreading a message, with this time in COVID. Video production still, goes a long way because it's remote, and that's something that I think I'm pretty good at. So there's a lot of different ways that you can reach youth or community in general. And I think the best step is just to do it.
Very good. Well, thank you, Jake. That was enlightening. For everybody else, we will be back at 11:30 next week to discuss, well, actually, it's my service. So, in times of war, the law falls silent is the name of it. So, prepare yourselves for that, my friends. All right. I hope you all have a beautiful week and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jake.
Mhm.
Yeah.